And good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this presentation, part of Kerby Centre's Spring into 2021 week-long series of online presentations by some of Calgary's leading providers of information and services to help you live your best lives. Before we begin, as we gather today, it's vital we also remember the peoples who gathered here for millennia. This is the Treaty 7 land of the Indigenous peoples of Southern Alberta, the Blackfoot nations of 𝗖𝗍𝗃, 𝗏𝗏𝗃, 𝗃𝗏𝗃, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, the Stoney Nakoda nations of 𝗺𝗍𝗃, 𝗵𝘂𝗶𝗴𝗄, and Wesley, and the historic home of the Northwest Métis and Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. It is with the goal of reconciliation that we acknowledge the land on which we gather, and we thank the elders of these nations for their timeless contributions to this land. And as I mentioned, we have an exciting week for you to help you spring into 2021. All week long, we'll be presenting a wide range of topics and interests that will help you to maintain a healthy and rewarding lifestyle. Today, we feature PROSTAID Calgary and welcome Brad Sterling and David Lunn, our president and past president. Brad retired in 2015 after 37 years of service with Royal Bank of Canada. Brad was first diagnosed with prostate cancer in January 2009 at the age of 54. Over the past 12 years, he has experience with surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, and androgen deprivation therapy. Easy for me to say, Brad. Brad is currently enrolled in a research study involving a new drug therapy, and his journey continues. He has been a member of PROSTAID Calgary since 2016 with the support of his wife, Wendy. They hope to be able to help others as they experience their cancer journey. Brad and Wendy enjoy gardening, camping, and travel, and they've been volunteering in various causes, committees, and organizations for 45 years. David was a biology teacher for over 30 years and co-authored several biology resources. After teaching, he developed programs in energy and the environment for Canadian schools until 2010. In 2006, he was diagnosed and treated successfully for prostate cancer. He volunteers with PROSTAID Calgary, the Prostate Cancer Centre, and Alberta Health Services. Weather and COVID permitting, he does a little golfing. Brad, I understand that prostate cancer is the most common cancer to affect Canadian men, and that 1 in 9 men will be diagnosed with the disease in their lifetime. Can you tell us a little about prostate cancer, and how does PROSTAID Calgary help men who've been diagnosed with it?
Great. What I'll do is I'm going to share my screen now, and we will delve a little more into those numbers, Colleen. Thank you for making time for us today. And thank you to Colleen and the team at the Kerby Centre for putting this all together. This is just great. So today's agenda, there's really 3 things that we would like you to take away from our presentation this morning. Firstly, we would like you to have regular blood tests and DREs until age 80. Now, these abbreviations will make more sense as we go through our presentation. We'll explain in a little more detail what that all means. And we realize that there may be women out there who are watching. So you'll maybe know some men who are over 40 and under the age of 80. And we would encourage you to encourage them to get checked starting at age 40. Early diagnosis is the key to increasing the success rate of treatments. And it's said that it's almost 99% treatable when caught early. The who, what, and where. Well, PROSTAID Calgary was formed in 1993 and operated under the umbrella of Prostate Cancer Canada until last year, when they merged with the Canadian Cancer Society. To fill the void, Prostate Cancer Support Canada was created. Here at PROSTAID Calgary, we have 4 missions. Our support is provided through our various groups, the warriors, wives, partners, and caregivers, as well as the newly diagnosed. we have awareness through events such as this, as well as other presentations that we do to various lunch and learns and events of that nature. Our education is provided through our monthly publication, The Digital Examiner. This can be subscribed to on our website at prostate.org. We also do monthly meetings on the second Tuesday of each month. And we used to meet at the Kerby Centre and hope to get back there soon. But in the meanwhile, we'll continue to do virtual presentations such as this for our general meetings. Our advocation is through participation in various groups, such as the Alberta Prostate Cancer Research Initiative. Now for the fine print, or should I say large print. To minimize the issues of overtreatment and before deciding on a treatment, we encourage our members to consult with their medical team. We do not endorse or recommend treatments, medications, physicians, and simply put, we do not give medical advice. This is why we recommend our members seek advice from qualified healthcare professionals. Now, prostate cancer by the numbers. As Colleen mentioned, 1 in 9 will develop prostate cancer during their lifetime. 20% of all new cancer cases in men is prostate cancer. 10% of all cancer deaths in men in Canada is from prostate cancer. Prostate cancer is second only to skin cancer. And no surprise, Alberta numbers are very similar to these Canadian numbers. Every week in Alberta, 8 men die from prostate cancer. But there is good news. The 5-year survival rate is 95%. Prostate cancer is very common, but is also very treatable. The prostate cancer clinicians often say men are more likely to die with prostate cancer than from prostate cancer. Early detection is the key. When caught early, some have said it is 99% treatable. Unfortunately, when detected later, that effectiveness drops to 28%. Now, I'm going to turn it over to David, and he is going to delve a little more into what we know about prostate cancer. David?
Thank you, Brad. That's good. Let me start with the top one, which is the risk factors. And risk factors with any cancer, of course, is the problem with the reproductive control of the cells that is lost. And so the cells start to multiply faster than they would normally. Risk factors in case of prostate cancer refer to those aspects which are genetic or hereditary. And so one of the key risk factors is knowing your family history, particularly for your father or your uncle or any of the men. The causes of prostate cancer are typically genetic. And it's interesting that Black men, for example, there's an ethnicity condition here. Black men have a higher risk of prostate cancer than do white men, than do Asian men. And so again, that's attesting to the heredity or the genetic aspect of prostate cancer. The signs and symptoms typically are none. I was 63 when I was diagnosed. I had no signs or symptoms. What the signs or symptoms might be would be difficulty urinating because the prostate, the urethra from the urinary bladder goes right through the middle of the prostate cancer or the prostate gland. And if the gland is swelling, that can constrict the urethra, and so there might be difficulty urinating. Blood in the cancer would be, blood in the urine, sorry, would be another indication that there's something going on. So signs and symptoms are very difficult. Let me go on to the next slide. Let me just try to locate for you the prostate gland, and you can see it there in the lighter color. And you see it's in a very crowded region of the lower abdomen. The urinary bladder is directly above it, the penis below it, and the prostate gland has a nerve net on the anterior portion of it, and that nerve net is responsible for producing an erection. The urethral sphincters, there's two of them. There's one right next to the bladder there, and then there's one at the exit point where the urethra comes out of the prostate gland. Those present problems for surgical or any treatment, as does the rectum. And the rectum, you can see, sort of sits right next to the posterior section, or the back section of the prostate. The pubic bone is there right in the middle. So anyway, it's a very crowded region of the lower abdomen, and that presents challenges for its treatment, or well, for any treatment. The way to diagnose a difficulty with the prostate, or a problem with the prostate, are two things. One is the digital rectal exam, where the doctor inserts a gloved finger into the rectum and can feel the back portion of the prostate, but obviously is not able to feel the front side of the prostate because of the location of the rectum. That's why the second test is important, and that's the prostate-specific antigen, which is simple blood test, and that will give you an indication if the PSA number is elevated beyond what is normal for your age group, then that might indicate that there's some growth in the prostate. That growth may be cancer, it may not be cancer. And the only way you diagnose cancer is by taking a biopsy, which is a needle biopsy of the cells in the prostate gland, and examining them microscopically. The biopsy can be random or targeted. The digital rectal exam finds 25% of prostate cancers. In my case, I was having a routine checkup with my doctor. He did the DRE and said, I can feel something hard, it's irregular. Let's have a look at your PSA. My PSA should have been in the range of 4.5. It came in at 7.5. And we'll look at those numbers shortly. Next, please, Brad. What is the PSA? It's prostate-specific antigen. Simply means it's a protein that's produced by prostate cells. It rises naturally as a man ages, and that's because the main driver for prostate gland or prostate cell growth is the male hormone testosterone. And so as the man ages, the exposure to testosterone, which began in significant amounts during puberty and continues through the natural lifetime of any man, that means the prostate gland is exposed to this testosterone, which encourages its growth. The PSA is a simple blood test, and like the digital rectal exam, it's a screening test only. Next slide. So if we look at PSAs, you notice there the right-hand column, you can see the numbers. That's 2.5, that's micrograms per liter of blood. And notice that it does increase as you go to different age groups. Next, please, Vlad. A high level of PSA doesn't necessarily mean that there's prostate cancer. What it does mean is there's prostate growth. And that could be due to an infection or inflammation, or what is called prostatitis. Anytime you see that word itis at the end of whether it be bronchitis or tonsillitis or appendicitis. It simply means it's an infection or sorry, an enlargement, possibly an infection. Benign prostatic hyperplasia is the growth of the prostate, but the growth is not due to cancer cells. And prostate cancer typically shows up in 25% of the of a high level of PSA. Next, please. The recommendation is to have a baseline blood test at age 40. And then if it's normal, you have that, the PSA is normal, then have it every 5 years until age 50. If you have a family history, however, the recommendation is to have that PSA done every year. Then when you get to age 50 and over, it should be an annual test. And the PSA should be done, as well as a digital rectal exam. The number for the PSA, as you saw on the previous slide, is important, and we recommend that anyone know their PSA number. That number in itself is not the be all and end all. What's really important is how that number's changing from each annual test or each test that you have. And once you get, say, 3 or maybe 4 PSAs, you can see what the trend is. And that trend line, which is sometimes called PSA velocity, is really important. Those values there on the previous slide, those values are from the Canadian Laboratory Services, sorry, Calgary Laboratory Services that typically do your PSA tests. Thanks, Brad. Next slide. Imaging and biopsy, with any medical, there's a plethora of acronyms, and TRUS is transrectal ultrasound. Simply means that an ultrasound probe is placed in the rectum, and that ultrasound is directed to the prostate gland, and then you can get an indication as to just where the enlargement or the growth is occurring. A random biopsy simply means it's a needle biopsy, which is done randomly through the rectum into the prostate gland. An MP-MRI is a little bit more specific because this is multiparametric magnetic resonance imaging. You've heard of MRI, no doubt. An MRI, what that does is give you a specific picture as to where the gland and the cancer are located, where the cancer within the gland is located. And so that simply allows for better targeting of the biopsy. The UroNav fusion biopsy system is where you take MRI and ultrasound together and sort of marry those two imaging processes to make the biopsy a bit more specific. In my case, I had a 10-core needle biopsy, and 7 out of those 10 cores came back positive for prostate cancer. The gland they estimated was about 25% was cancerous, but as I said earlier, I had no symptoms or indication that there was cancer there at all. Next slide. Yeah, the treatment options are several. One is really to do nothing but monitor your PSA and see how it's changing, and that's called active surveillance. And so the doctor might prescribe having your PSA tested, maybe every 3 months, every 4 months, or maybe a different interval to see what's going on in terms of the prostate's growth. Surgery, of course, you can remove it, and that has attendant problems, particularly with regards to the bladder and also the external and internal sphincters that control the flow of urine, as well as the bowel. The rectum can be adversely affected. The other part is the nerve net. My case, I opted to have surgery and have it removed. And I have mild incontinence, and I have no erectile function at all. Regardless of what treatment you opt for, there's always some way to correct what might be the attendant problem coming from that. Radiation simply means you're going to burn the prostate cancer, and the radiation might be external beam from outside the abdomen, or it could be radioactive seeds which are implanted into the prostate gland. These are very tiny tubes, perhaps a little bit thicker than the lead in a pencil, but inside are maybe 4 or 5 radioactive seeds, and those are planted into the prostate and can be quite effective. Androgen deprivation therapy. Androgen is a male hormone, and this is testosterone. And I mentioned earlier that testosterone is one of the key hormones that stimulates the prostate to grow. And so by depriving the prostate gland of this particular hormone, that can slow its growth. Cryotherapy means freezing. So you're going to freeze the prostate gland, typically done through the urethra or into the prostate cancer, and again that destroys the cells. The last one not available in Calgary, but it's being tested at University of Western Ontario in the east, is transurethral ultrasound ablation. This is inserting an ultrasound wand into the urethra through the penis, and by locating the prostate cancer with an MRI, you can use ultrasound to actually destroy the cancer. This has been very successful in the tests that have been done both in Europe as well as in the East. No one in Calgary has brought that program in yet. All treatments have risks, and the side effects are varied. I mentioned incontinence. I mentioned erectile function, and again, these treatments, different treatments may have different unwanted side effects, and I mentioned also the bowel and urgency in that regard could be affected by the treatment. Next, please, Brad. This is you, or this is me?
This is me. So thank you, David. I'm going to talk now about what happens if cancer has returned or it has spread. And how do we know this? Well, continued PSA testing, DRAs will help assess that, but there's also some separate scans. We do CT scans, bone scans, and it could be those scans can help determine whether that cancer has spread. So in my case, right after my surgery, my PSA started to increase, and I was referred to a radio-oncologist. We did some bone scans and CT scans, and the course of action was the cancer had returned but couldn't be located. So they started with androgen deprivation therapy, which then starves the cancer cells so they're fuel to grow. This works for a while, but I ended up with a tumor in the prostate bed where they were able to shrink the tumor enough through androgen deprivation therapy. And then we did some radiation and we're able to radiate the tumor. So eventually these treatments stop working. The cancer continues to spread. There are now blockers available. So androgen deprivation prevents the uh, production of testosterone. Androgen receptor blockers work by blocking the cancer cells from getting the testosterone. Chemotherapy, of course, is the use of chemicals to kill the cancer cells. There's currently 2 types of chemotherapy available. And the most exciting news is immune therapies, which are now in research. So there's some really exciting developments. And in fact, the study I'm on is not immune therapy, but it's a more effective androgen receptor blocker. So there was 2 new drugs approved just last year. So there's lots of great things happening with regard to secondary treatments. Now, what do you do? Well, as David and I have mentioned previously, know your numbers, but not just your PSA and the annual trend. You should also know your blood pressure. You should also know, if possible, your blood sugar. These are important numbers, and you can get to be familiar with them through your regular checkups. As David said earlier, know your family history. Prostate cancer is a highly genetic disease. And one of the best things that you can do is take charge of your own health care. This is eat a heart-healthy diet, maintain a healthy lifestyle through exercise. And by doing so, you may not be able to prevent prostate cancer, but you will certainly impact the effectiveness of the treatments and be able to maintain your current lifestyle. Now there's some resources available. The first 3 are local resources right here in Calgary, Prostate Calgary. Prostate.org is our website, info@prostate.org. You can email us to get information. Prostate Cancer Support Canada, they are a great resource, and they have some links to some really quality videos and information resources. In Calgary, we're lucky to be having the Southern Alberta Institute of Urology, where all the urologists are located on the 6th floor at the Prostate Cancer Centre, and they're all in one location. So we've got access to some very knowledgeable people all in one location. Alberta Health Services is another great resource through myhealth.alberta.ca. And if you have access to the internet and want to check them out, I use them all the time for different resources because there's some great information on there. Cancer Care Alberta, Canadian Cancer Society, all have good information if you're looking for details or just general information on prostate cancer. We also refer to the Prostate Cancer Research Institute in the USA and the Prostate Cancer Foundation. It's also in the USA. They are good resources. Unfortunately, some of the treatments and research that they talk about are not available in Canada, but they do have some great information. So we rely on them to get some leading edge type information. Now, this is the interactive part. Audience participation is encouraged, and we would be available to answer any questions that you might have. And I'll turn it over to Colleen, who's in control of the
Thank you very much. That was most informative. And, you know, I am so sorry to hear that you and David have had to undergo such experiences. It must have been a very frightening time for you and your families. And, but that I'm really grateful for the fact that you've had a positive outcome and for all the work that you're doing. I applaud you for being able to help others that are going through the same journey, being so open with your experiences. So I applaud you for that. Thank you very much for sharing that today. If you would like to end your screen share, then we'll open it up for some discussion and Q&A. At this point, I would invite you to ask your question using the Q&A or chat button at the bottom menu on your screen. Or if you'd like to ask the question, raise hand and we can have you unmute. But in the meantime, it sounds like you have a wonderfully supportive community. What I'm understanding is that your organization is primarily about advocacy and support. And it sounds like you have an amazingly supportive community there, wives and families, and looking after each other. So that's wonderful. And we do have a question here. Susan would like to know, do you recommend PSA tests for over 70?
I can take this one if you like, Brad.
Yep.
The recommendation with the Prostate Cancer Centre here in Calgary recommend that you continue to do PSAs up till age 80. After 80, the chances of having prostate cancer are significant. As Brad said, you end up dying with prostate cancer, but not from it. In the case of the PSA, the recommendation is to have it done till age 80. Beyond age 80, it's unlikely that the prostate cancer will be treated. In other words, it's said that if you've lived to age 80 with prostate cancer, the chances are that it's probably indolent or slow growing and not likely at risk. But in your 70s, definitely.
And Barb has said, thank you for this excellent presentation. Being a retired healthcare professional, I'm asked for information or resources, and your presentation has provided both so well. And I do agree with you, Barb. It's been very informative, fascinating information. Both of you gentlemen are very knowledgeable I know that you said that you don't provide medical advice, but you've certainly given some great information here today. Has anyone else any questions that they would like to ask, please feel free. In the meantime, I understand that you may be going into a bit of a fundraising and awareness campaign around Father's Day, the Going Plaid.
Yes, they have a number of initiatives. There's one out of BC, the Father's Day Walk and Run that raises funds for Prostate Cancer Support Canada. We weren't organized quickly enough, and we missed out on that because of COVID. We really didn't think that that was an event that we would be able to participate in. I know there was a few members here in Calgary that were looking to try and organize something, but they do have online fundraising. And unfortunately, we're just in the process of upgrading our website. So we felt it was probably not going to be something that we could answer.
But I'm certain that you certainly appreciate any support that you can get.
Oh, absolutely.
And awareness raising. So, and anyone else have any questions here?
There is one in the Q&A that says, how often does an enlarged prostate form prostate cancer? I don't have any specific number for that, but nevertheless, an enlarged prostate would suggest that the person have a biopsy to determine whether or not the enlargement is cancerous or whether or not it's a benign prostatic hyperplasia. In other words, a growth within the prostate, but not cancerous.
So typically, as Dave mentioned in his presentation, high PSA numbers, really 25% of the time it would be prostate cancer. So those numbers, usually a high PSA would indicate some type of inflammation or enlargement of the gland. So it's really fairly low. And like I said, 99% treatable if caught early. So that's the key message.
One of the things that a high PSA number doesn't necessarily mean prostate cancer. For example, if you ride a bike or well, stationary or otherwise, the saddle can palpate, that is, stimulate the prostate to release more PSA, more of the antigen. An infection or a cold could cause the prostate PSA number to be high as well. So it's important not only to take certainly one measure of that PSA, but and if it's high, then you'd wait maybe weeks or a month or so and take another PSA to see if the trend is starting or is continuing, or it's changing in some way.
I think, and correct me if I'm misinformed, but I think that this has become a little bit more routine part of a full medical checkup for gentlemen when they go to the doctor, and highly recommend that people do that.
Yeah, they were checking my PSA regularly, but I didn't know the number. And it wasn't until it started to rise above the normal range for my age group that my doctor and I had the discussion, and I was referred to the Prostate Cancer Centre through their rapid access clinic to arrange for my first biopsy. And like I say, that was when I was 53. So wow. I'm 66 now. So.
Congratulations, and going strong.
It is definitely treatable, and I was fortunate enough to have caught it early. So I can't stress enough the importance of any listeners or people watching that even if you are past 80 or female, you encourage the males in your life to get tested and get tested early. So, and because it's hereditary, I encourage my kids to make sure that they're getting tested, because it's driven by genetics in a large part. So we're learning more and more these days about how the genes are impacting not just prostate cancer, but breast cancer and all cancers. So it's important to get those tests done.
Well, just to follow up on that, Brad, I'm reminded of a presentation that Brett Wilson did for our group a number of years ago. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer and has been an advocate of getting tested and so on early, but also to talk within your family about these conditions sort of below the belt, as we say. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer in his 40s, his mid-40s. When he announced that to his father exclaimed and said, "Oh, geez, what's going on?" And his father had prostate cancer, his uncle had prostate cancer, but they never talked about it.
Oh,
and
really?
So the important thing is to encourage your, to talk about these things. And I'm guessing that maybe most of our listeners are in the gray hair, in the senior category, and what's important is, even if you may be old enough that you yourself would not necessarily require a test, then to encourage your those you know who are younger, particularly your family or your children, to do that. And I would say that to the women as well, because often when I was out on the man ban, it was the women that were sort of dragging, is perhaps an exaggeration, but encouraging their husbands to get tested. And so that women, I don't know if you can generalize this, take more of a view of healthcare, perhaps more seriously than men do. I say it's the TDF, which is the testes determining factor. It's a genetic thing. But I say to some of the women, I say, you know what the problem is? It not only produces testes and testosterone, but it also makes men stupid. Now that's maybe a bit harsh for the men listening, but anyway.
More stubborn, I think. More stubborn. It's, I'm fine, I'm fine. So thank heavens for the wives out there that are dragging them for the test. So, but that's great. And that is absolutely great advice because, as you say, you know, we don't know what we don't know. And so, you know, to be able to educate the next generation as well. You know, it's absolutely frightening to think that you could possibly have, you know, a disease as invasive as this and not have any symptoms and not even know that you have it. So, you know, making sure that you remain diligent is important. So I would certainly appreciate your information here today and that building that awareness. Now, is anyone else any further questions here for Brad and David? And I would highly recommend, or I highly encourage you that if you think of anything after the fact, then reach out. Linda would like to know, what does ultrasound of the bladder show?
Yeah, the ultrasound of the bladder would give you an image. It wouldn't be as specific an image as a CAT scan. That wouldn't be as specific an image as a MRI image. But the bladder cancer is a different aspect. So I'm not sure if you're asking, Linda, what does an ultrasound of the bladder show? Well, it would certainly show the bladder, and it could possibly show abnormalities in terms of growth there as well. What we've been talking about is ultrasound of that gland just below the bladder, the prostate gland, and that would also indicate some indication of abnormality in terms of growth.
They even have some new scans. There's one that's available in Vancouver and Montreal, and I believe maybe Toronto. It's a PSMA PET scan. So that's a prostate specific membrane PET scan. And it is, it's like high definition. So it's able to pinpoint prostate cancer cells throughout the body. And this is the latest development in diagnosis. So
sorry, Brad, I could give you just these scans are, a CAT scan gives you an image of the tissue you're taking the scan of. MRI gives you one that's a bit more specific, but again, it's an image. So it gives you a picture. A PET scan is quite different. PET is positron emission tomography is what it stands for. The PET is an indication of how much metabolism is going on. In other words, how active that particular tissue is in terms of growing. And so the PET scan is particularly useful because typically cancers can be, well, they can be both slow growing or more aggressive. And to know how active it is metabolically is really what a PET scan gives you in terms of information.
I know you mentioned that you were revamping your website. How do people get in touch with you if they would like further information?
Prostaid.org. So PROSTAID, combination of prostate and aid. So prostaid.org is our website, and info@prostaid.org is our email connection.
I would highly encourage anybody that would like further information to reach out, and we will, as I said, have the video upload to our YouTube channel, Kerby Centre YouTube channel here imminently, and we'll be sure and get that link out to you in the event that you'd like to revisit or please share and to help us to build the awareness and pass this message on. David and Brad, thank you so much for your support here today. Wonderful information. You're doing great work there, and we thank you very much for your contribution. Before we close here, I just wanted to say that I hope that you have found this presentation valuable today, and that you'll join us for other upcoming presentations. We have right on the heels here Alberta Securities Commission this morning, as well as the Manor Villages, the benefits of community living and how to get started this afternoon at 1 o'clock. Registration is still open for that one if you'd like to join us, as well as tomorrow we have VERV Communities, Next Stage Services, and Cooperative Memorial Society. All of these can be found on our Kerby Centre website, the KerbyCentre.com/wellness-week, and information and direct links for registration are there. So we hope that you'll plan to join us. And please don't forget that we've just launched our Kerby Centre Classic Golf Tournament, our inaugural golf tournament for September. And information can be found on our website as well, KerbyCentre.com/golf. And again, gentlemen, thank you so much for today. Lots of information in a whirlwind. We appreciate it. We look forward to being able to chat with you again in the future. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you.